What's up, everybody? This is episode 42 of the Clappercast. It is February 24th, 2020, and I'm Burke.
And I'm Sean.
And we had quite the eventful trade deadline today, Sean.
I think this was like the most trades they've ever recorded on trade deadline day since like 1980. They had 31 or 32, I believe. So TSN was not short of activity.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because everybody thought that all the trades were happening earlier than the deadline and we wouldn't have anything left.
Well, yeah, I mean that's what's been happening the last few years. So the GMs just kind of like had some fun with us, and now we have an exciting day to cover.
Yeah, and we're actually going to take it back to right after the Foley trade because that's the last one we talked about. So there was,
Yeah,
as I mentioned, a few trades before the deadline actually happened. So let's dive into that, shall we? I think the major one, the first major one after that is Dylan DeMello got traded to the Jets from the Ottawa Senators for a 2020 third round pick. So I think we kind of called that Winnipeg would be looking for some defensemen. So they
definitely.
picked up DeMello. I think it's a solid ad.
He is. Yeah, DeMello did pretty well in Ottawa. I mean, he's a reliable middle pairing guy. He's not really offensive or anything, but I don't think Winnipeg's starving for that. So I think he'll be a really good fit as just like a reliable, dependable presence defensively for their struggling decor.
Yeah, just an NHLer that they can depend on to play some minutes. Yeah, nothing really else to say about that one. I think it's a good ad by them. They didn't give up too much. I think people thought they might
That is a
fetch
reasonable
a
price.
second.
Like
Yeah,
that's actually a really good price for Winnipeg.
yeah,
And I mean Ottawa, like obviously they're just like completely stockpiling draft picks right now. So
yeah.
whatever they can get is probably totally fine.
hmm And then continuing on the D train here, the Capitals acquired Brendan Dillon from the San Jose Sharks for a 2020 second round pick and a 2021 conditional third round pick.
And the condition on that third round pick is that if the Capitals win the 2020 Stanley Cup, the 2021 third rounder will become 2020 third round pick that Washington previously acquired from Arizona, if that made any sense at all.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I like it. I've always liked Brendan Dillon for some reason, and I think it's, a solid move. The Capitals always get a defenseman at the trade deadline, it seems, or in the days leading up to it at least. They got Jensen, they got Kempney, they've got like Tim Gleason. They always get a defenseman, so we kind of knew this was coming. And in one of his first games as a Capital, he beat the shit out of Evgeny Malkin. So he's
He's
really
fitting in quite nicely.
endearing himself to Caps fans. Yeah, it's pretty funny. So I think it's a good addition. A second seems fair, and then a third, whatever.
Yeah, like he's an excellent shutdown defenseman, and they're gonna really like his presence on the penalty kill too,
hmm
moving forward. That he'll give them another option on the back end just because they're not necessarily weak in that regard, but they could definitely use a little bit of help.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely been some over asks of some of the D-men that are there now. I think like Jensen and Fairvary and Siegenthaler are good, but I think they're been asked to play a little bit too many minutes in the games. So having
Hmm.
Dylan will be a nice stabilizing factor there. Maybe let's move on, I guess, to the next trade, which is the St. Louis Blues acquired Marcos Candela for a second round pick in 2020 and a 2021 conditional fourth round pick from the Montreal Canadiens. So the Canadiens were able to flip Scandella pretty effectively, I would say. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. So what they get him for a fourth, and they turned him into a second and a likely fourth as well, because the condition on that other trade is that Montreal will receive the 2021 fourth round pick if St. Louis resigns Scandella before October 7th, 2020, or if St. Louis wins two playoff rounds and he plays in at least half the games.
Hmm.
So that seems like a fairly reasonable or easy condition to meet. I think giving up that price, and if Scandella does well in St. Louis through the rest of the season here, that they'd probably want to bring him back as a depth guy.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure
So
out what that trade was that brought him there. I think they gave up Mike Riley. Is that it?
there's definitely a fourth round pick involved.
No, yeah, it was a fourth, just a fourth. Yeah, so I mean, good asset management, get more than what you paid back.
Also, I mean, it's just one more shot at Buffalo, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't know, I think it's a solid ad by the Blues. They've had obviously Jay Bouwmeester out. So adding a defenseman makes sense. And the next trade is kind of a bit of a weird one, but the Toronto Maple Leafs acquired Dennis Mulligan from the Florida Panthers in exchange for another forward, Mason Marchment. Seems a bit weird to
You
be
have to really
trading with
look at this one to make
yeah, trading with the person that you're the team that you're in a playoff race against. And there's a little bit of weird drama with this trade where Mulligan said he never requested a trade, but his agent did.
Ooh, spicy.
Yeah. So I guess, moving him somewhere. I don't really think this one makes sense because the Maple Leafs have seems like they signed like a million guys at the same level as Mulligan this offseason, like Pontus Aberg, guys like that.
Yeah. I mean, what's that saying? If you throw enough shit at the wall, something's gonna stick eventually.
Yeah, I guess so.
It's kind of just like put enough players in random bottom six forward positions, and eventually some of them will find some chemistry and stick around for longer than 10 games.
Pick up another small, skilled forward.
In Mulligan's defense, though, I have heard that he was a decent forward type for little stretches with Florida. That he has the potential to be a reliable player. There's just some work that's got to be done to give him more consistency in the lineup.
The only thing that I know Mulligan from is that picture of him getting absolutely destroyed by Nicholas Kronwall. It's like a very cool
a good
photo.
legacy.
Yeah, that's the only thing I know him from. So yeah, I think just a weird.
I'll be honest. I think a good part of the reason that he's memorable in my mind is that I keep thinking it's Malkin. I get confused.
Yeah, definitely some hearts skipped a beat when they saw that the Maple Leafs acquired Mulligan.
Yeah, is that a typo? Like, did they get Malkin?
Yeah, I can't believe Chicago let him go like that.
Yeah, really. Bold of Ford to be trading away Chicago's players too.
I know, the nerve, absolute nerve. Vegas got in the game here with one of their first moves. They acquired Alec Martinez from the Los Angeles Kings for a second round pick in 2020 and a second round pick in 2021. So what do you think about this one?
Vegas is always active in free agency and trade deadlines, so it's not surprising they're one of the big players this year again. And they're also seeming to be really quick to identify their needs. So this year that they were weak on defense and they're weak in goaltending. They address both of those. We'll start with the defense. That Alec Martinez is going to provide reliable and two-way defensive play. He's had a really hot start offensively for them. He's got like 4 points in the first 3 games there. And he's going to just do a really good job at helping push some of the guys down Vegas's defensive lineup who are playing a bit too many minutes and just give them a reliable presence there. And I mean, LA's in full rebuild mode. They get a couple of second round picks. That's probably really good for them to stock up on prospects, I think.
I don't really have anything to add for that. I guess let's just move on. I think the next kind of big trade was the Boston Bruins acquired Ondrej Kase from the Anaheim Ducks for David Backes, defensive prospect Axel Anderson, and a 2020 first round pick. That's a pretty big one. The Bruins were trying to get rid of Backes for a while, and everybody kind of thought that the price would be pretty high to get rid of him. He'd have to be packaged with something pretty valuable to take on.
Definitely. Especially with that cap hit he brings.
Yeah, and to note here, the Bruins actually did retain 25% of that contract. So I think he's on contract for a few more seasons, isn't he?
He has 1 more year after this year.
At least they dumped off a solid percentage of it, but
yeah,
I think they got a good forward
quite a bit for them
in return. They gave up a lot for him, especially for someone who's injury prone and is actually, I think, still out of the lineup right now.
Correct.
But I mean, he's a good player.
Kase is like one of those guys that's like every single year he seems to be like Anaheim's candidate for breakout star. Like he has so much potential and he shows himself to be such a good player, but he's always hurt and he can just never stay in the lineup long enough to get anything going. So for Boston, it looks great. I mean, they have a potential second line now of like Jake DeBrusk, David Krejci, and Ondrej Kase. And to go behind their already perfection line, like how many more great lines does this team need? It's a matter of whether Kase can stay healthy.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I think the next one here is the Winnipeg Jets acquired Cody Eakin from the Vegas Golden Knights in exchange for a 2021 conditional fourth round pick.
And the condition on that pick is that it upgrades to a 2021 third round pick if Winnipeg makes the 2019-20 playoffs or re-sign Cody Aiken before July 5th, 2020.
Yeah, so Cody Aiken, a Winnipeg guy, I believe. So kind of cool for him to go play for the Jets.
Definitely.
I think this is a weird relationship between Vegas and Winnipeg, and it's always surprising to see them trade with each
Oh,
other.
for sure, yeah. I mean,
Um,
that first year, I mean, immediate rivalry, immediate like intense playoff series, and then they're just going to make a nice casual trade here to help each other out.
and the whole Stasny thing, it's kind of
Yes, that
funny.
too. Yeah, they kept stealing all the players.
Yeah, so I think
Yeah,
with Adam Lowry out for the year, they were looking for some center depth. So bring Cody Aiken
exactly.
in makes sense. I
I
think that
mean,
there's probably a good chance that he does re-sign there.
I feel like there is. I think Aiken, like he's been a pretty good forward in Vegas for a couple of years now. He's like one of the really reliable penalty killers, two-way forwards, something that would go great in Winnipeg's bottom six. And he struggled a bit this season, but a nice little trade, new system, fresh start could be really good for Aiken.
Yeah. I think he might be a little bit overpaid, which is why the Knights wanted to get rid of him,
That is my next
especially with,
point, that Vegas needed cap space for their other moves over the trade week here.
yes,
So by freeing
absolutely.
up the whatever, I mean, Aiken's making 3.85 million, so whatever that frees up in cap space for them is
Yeah,
very valuable to them.
yes, for sure. Let's move on. I guess the next one here is the Caps made another move. They acquired Ilya Kovalchuk in exchange for a 2020 third round pick from the Montreal Canadiens, and the Montreal Canadiens are retaining salary on a
Yeah.
$700,000 contract for
So I
Kovalchuk
think
because the Caps are that against the cap. They needed it.
they're basically paying him like $20,000 or something crazy, like some stupid small amount because of how little is left in the season.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. That
So,
Kovalchuk
resident
is
Caps
on.
fan, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I don't know. I was kind of surprised. I mean, there was the rumors that the Caps were in on Kovalchuk, but I never really thought that it would happen because, the teams struggled a little bit recently, but we're kind of rolling overall on the season. But the more I thought about it, the more I kind of like it. I like having another offensive weapon that can slot into line 2 or line 3. You can play power play unit 2, give them another scoring touch. Yeah, I think they
What do you feel about my suggested power play formation for them, where they've got Ovi and Kovalchuk both on each point with a defenseman playing high slot to feed them for one timers?
Yeah, I mean, who needs defense, right? It's just pure shoot the puck.
Just shoot.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how this works because I can see him playing with like Lars Eller and on the third line, but I just don't know. It's weird. It's like we already have a guy who has a giant shot and is known for not being very defensively responsible. So I don't know.
I'm I'm kind of I'm kind of optimistic about this one just because of the whole like Russian connection. Like from the sounds of it, Ovechkin and Kovalchuk are both pretty close or in somewhat friends off the ice. So it could be a good one where it's like Kovalchuk goes into a comfortable environment and can help out with whatever cup run the Caps have this year.
That's why I kind of thought he was going to go there before, when he was originally bought out by LA. Is that he was like on Instagram, he was eating dinner and having wine with Ovechkin and his family around like Christmas time.
Yes.
So I thought he was going to go there at that point. So it's not super surprising. It's just kind of funny that it happened this way. um,
Yeah. Well,
but
it
yeah,
kind
I
of came out
mean,
of nowhere. I was pretty
definitely.
like
Yeah.
surprised when that popped up on my phone. I'm like, wait, what?
I think that's the pretty like consensus reaction is just like, okay, cool. That's awesome. Yeah, you mentioned the Russian connection here. The Russians on the Capitals, we have Ovechkin, Kuznetsov, Orlov, Samsonov. So I think he'll feel very comfortable coming in. The Capitals are quickly becoming Team Russia again. So I think he'll fit in. He'll get along well with everybody. I hope he keeps up how he was playing in Montreal and doesn't look more like he was in LA. But I think we have to be smart about how we use him, and I think they'll be okay.
What are the chances that the Washington Olympic athletes from Russia win the cup this year, do you think now?
I think it's pretty high. I am more confident of this team than last year, especially with the defense we have going in to playoffs. I mean, knock on wood here that nothing crazy happens, but I think we got a bit more depth in the blue line. And Samsonov is a more capable backup than Phoenix Copley was. So yeah, I think they're on a good roll here. And shout out to the Habs for getting a free third out of this.
Oh, yeah, I mean, look, we talked about their asset management a couple minutes ago there with the Scandella trade, and like, I mean, they just picked up Kovalchuk as a free agent a couple months ago, and they get a third round pick out of it. So
Not too
they're doing a really
shabby.
good job at that.
Yeah, for sure. Pretty awesome. Let's move on. Another former Capital here. The Edmonton Oilers acquired Mike Green from the Detroit Red Wings in exchange for Kyle Brodziak and a conditional fourth round pick.
And the conditional fourth round pick upgrades to a 2021 third round pick if Edmonton advances to the conference final and if Mike Green plays in 50% of the game.
This is another one that kind of came out of nowhere. I think it was after a game that the Oilers played and it just was announced.
Yeah, it was late last night this one broke. I think my response to you when I first heard about it was like just dot 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 why. I had heard about the rumors of this one for a couple of days. Like Edmonton was kicking tires on Mike Green. I'm just kind of like, why would they do that? He's basically just like a mediocre, aging, slow defender who's immediately like eighth in the Oilers depth chart. He might get some playing time right now because Clefbaum and Chris Russell are both injured. But as soon as both of them are back, like I would not put Mike Green over any of the defensemen in the Oilers lineup except for William Lagesson, and he's like the fringe guy right now to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Mike Green, even back to his last Capitals years. He's a huge defensive liability, and he has a lot of mental lapses where he like floats the puck up the ice to nobody. And I don't think that's the type of guy that you want on your team going into playoffs. He's not defensively sound, and I don't think that's what the Oilers need. I guess he can fill in on the power play with the absence of Clefbaum.
To be honest, Ethan Bear and Darnell Nurse can cover that about as well as Mike Green would.
I mean, who knows how good Mike Green is? He's been playing on a
Yeah.
shitty Wings team.
I guess we'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that one, that if he can come to a team in a slightly better situation, maybe he'll turn it around a little bit. If just because Dave Tippett and his coaching staff have done a pretty decent job at teaching the rest of the team defense this year, for the most
Mhm.
part.
Kyle Brodziak wasn't playing.
No, he was LTIR'd.
What's the fourth round pick again? What's the condition on that?
The conditions. So the 2020 fourth round pick upgrades to a 2021 third round pick if Edmonton advances to the conference final and if Green plays in 50% of the games, I'm assuming in the playoffs. So I'm actually leaning towards that not being a very likely upgrade.
I mean, it's a fourth or a third. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a
That about sums it up. Just a sigh. I don't know.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, for years you've known my opinion on Mike Green, so I'm
Yeah.
not sold on him. I don't know if I've tarnished his what your opinion of him is these past few years, but he's not great.
I've seen enough stories about him to kind of know that he was great offensively for a few years, but never good defensively, and then the offense kind of died off as well. And I don't know of his defensive game turning it around either.
Yeah, he's not the 30 goal scorer anymore. It's just not, he hasn't been for a
Maybe he could
very
play. Oh, you know
long
what?
time.
Maybe this is 4D chess. Maybe Mike Green's going to play on McDavid's wing, former
Maybe,
30 goal
yeah.
scorer.
Maybe if he went to Florida, that would be the plan, but
Maybe.
no. Yeah, it's a kind of a weird one. I don't know. Seems bizarre, but Holland with the Detroit connection, I guess, just rescuing players from that situation. Colorado, they picked up Vlad Nemesnikov from the Senators in exchange for a 2021 fourth round pick. What do you think about this one?
I think it's an all right trade. Colorado didn't have to pay much to get him. I feel like Nemesnikov is the type of player that's going to go to Colorado and probably do a little bit better than he has in other teams recently. He's kind of been one of those guys who like has a lot of potential, but he's never really put it together to be much more, or I say much more, but move past like a second, third line forward.
Yeah.
Colorado's like perennially looking for forward depth right now, especially now that Rantanen's out for the rest of the season. So I feel like Nemesnikov could get a decent shot here to get some bigger minutes and potentially be another kind of Burakovsky type where he goes and has a decent season.
Yeah, I think it's like you nailed it. Forward depth, Kadri's out too, I think still.
Oh, correct. Yes.
Yeah, it's like another, not quite as dramatic, but of Valery Nichushkin. He's had a really good season for Colorado.
That's the other guy I was thinking of.
Nemesnikov's always been a good defensive forward. He's always been very good two-way. So I think, the more guys you have like that going into playoffs, the better.
That'll be a valuable one in the high-powered Western Conference as well, with some offensive dynamos making their way into the playoffs.
Yeah. And this was the Senators kind of tiptoeing their way into the waters. This next trade, they acquired a 2020 conditional first-round pick, a 2020 second-round pick, and a 2022 conditional third-round pick from the New York Islanders in exchange for J.G. Pageau.
So the conditions on those draft picks. So on the 2020 conditional first-round pick, if the New York Islanders win the draft lottery and select top 3, the pick becomes a 2021 first-round pick. So that one's just lottery protected, basically. Mm-hmm. And the 2022 conditional third-round pick is transferred to the New York Islanders if the Islanders win the 2020 Stanley Cup.
So after this trade, the Islanders signed Pageau. What was that contract? It was like a 6-year?
Appears to be 6-year, 5 per year. 6x5 contract, which is pretty good, actually. That's kind of right in line for the type of forward he's been this season anyways. Mm-hmm. For an excellent third line center who's going to be able to move up very easily into the second line if needed. I really like this trade for both teams. That I think Pageau is going to be an excellent fit with this version of the Islanders and under Trotz's system. He's kind of that energetic, checking, versatile forward with a scoring touch that seems to have thrived in New York recently. And it's going to bode well in a playoff run too. So it's going to help the Islanders get more scoring throughout the lineup and have that trustworthy third line, have a good penalty killer, have a good guy in all situations. And yeah, it was a little bit expensive in terms of all of those draft picks, but I think the Islanders are in a major playoff push right now, and they kind of have to be with the way their division is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it is a good trade for both teams involved. Basically a first and a second. I mean, unless they win the cup, and then they're more than willing to give up another third-round pick.
Are you sure you'd give up a third-round pick to win the Stanley Cup?
Yes, I told you that earlier.
Just making
late
sure.
Last week that when we picked up Brendan Dillon, that I would be okay giving up a third for the cup. I know some people are more long-term minded, but I would be okay with it. You never know what a third-round pick could be, Sean. It could be a Stanley Cup.
like I said earlier too, like the Senators are just absolutely stockpiling picks here. Like they might as well just like put their table on the draft stage for the draft this year, to be honest.
Yeah, save them some steps from walking up and down so many times.
I'm just going to interject here with one really quick look at the Senators draft picks this year, but they have 3 first-round picks, 4 second-round picks, and 2 third-round picks. And then a 4th, a 5th, 2 6th, and no 7th. So
it's like the opposite of the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Basically.
Let's move on here. Carolina Hurricanes, they were very active on the deadline. So they acquired Vinny Trocheck, center, from the Florida Panthers in exchange for Erik Haula, Lucas Wallmark, Eetu Luostarinen, and Chase Priskie. So basically Trocheck for Haula and Wallmark and a couple prospects.
That's quite a Haula for Trocheck.
Oh, stop.
I've been waiting all day to make that joke. But actually, it's an accurate statement, though. That's pretty good for Trocheck.
It is. He's been underperforming this year.
Big time.
And I think, change of scenery could do him well. and Carolina gets that number 2 center. They kind of need a little bit more offense. So it makes sense.
Definitely. And I mean, Florida gets a whole bunch of random pieces that are great for their depth. Lucas Wallmark specifically is a really, really reliable and well-liked third line center. They'd like to see a little more offense out of him. He's kind of like a 20, 25 point guy from the looks of it. But Carolina Hurricanes fans had nothing but good things to say about this guy. So he'll probably do pretty well in Florida. And Chase Christie is also an intriguing prospect, in my opinion, because he was lighting it up down in the minors and in the AHL. And with being, I believe he's also a right shot as well, which is like an offensive right shot defenseman is super valuable.
Coveted. Yeah.
Yeah. So this guy's like 31 points in 52 games down in the AHL this year with Charlotte. So that's pretty good for a defenseman. I think Florida would find value in that if he can make the jump to the NHL over the next year or two.
Yeah, and adding Holla and Wallmark get some wingers, so you can maybe stop having your defense play wing.
Ooh, that's a good point. At a certain point, you want players to play their actual position, such as defensemen on the point.
That's stupid. You got to think outside the box.
4D chess here, bro.
Oh, okay, so just bear with my stupidity here for a second, but I was talking about this with a guy at work last week. What do you think would win? A team comprised of all all-star forwards, so forwards in every position, maybe except for goalie, or a team of all all-star defensemen playing every position but goalie?
I want to say the defensemen.
Yeah, that's what we thought too.
Because like they're typically better, obviously defensively, but all-star defensemen are usually more offensive than all-star forwards are defensive.
Yeah, for sure.
So you'd be able to cover. Yeah.
You'd have like Brent Burns, Erik Karlsson,
John Carlson,
John Carlson,
Shea Weber.
Yeah, I think they got a better shot at winning a full game than a bunch of
I
forwards.
They're also more durable too. Typically,
that's true. Yeah. So sorry to interject that in there, but it's a funny thing to think of because we were thinking about what an alternative to the All-Star game would be, and that was our idea, is that you have all the best D-men against all the best forwards, and you see
that
who
would
wins.
Be funny. That would be really funny.
Yeah.
I might actually tune in for that game.
Yeah, exactly.
Watch it.
Like you'd be like, what the hell is going to happen?
NHL, are you listening to this? Come on.
It'd be wild. It'd be so funny. So the next one here is the Habs acquired a 2021 fifth-round pick from the Philadelphia Flyers for Nate Thompson.
I think that's just some solid depth for Philly, hey?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Not a whole lot to say about that one.
I mean, Nate Thompson, I'm pretty sure Nate Thompson is just becoming like the trade deadline acquisition for every team. He's kind of working his way around the league. I want to say I think it's like the third straight year he's been traded at the deadline.
Yeah, I wonder if he's got like a punch card. It's like, get 12 teams and you get a free sandwich or something like that.
Free hot dog in the intermission.
Yeah. Hey, it's not Phil Kessel here. Come on. I guess let's move on. Penguins acquired Patrick Marleau from the Sharks in exchange for a 2021 third, which becomes a second if the Penguins win the Cup.
I feel like a third is the right pick for Marleau based off of what I feel the Penguins are looking for.
Yeah, I feel like it's an okay trade. I mean, as a non-Penguins fan, I always like when they add old slow guys. So I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I mean they've been absolutely decimated by injuries this year, so any additional forward depth who can kind of come in and just, fit into a system pretty well and know what's going on is going to be huge for helping them stabilize the team before the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. The Maple Leafs got Calle Rosen back from the Colorado Avalanche. He went there in the Kadri trade. But they got him for Michael Hutchinson. So
they probably, I guess Dubas didn't put in a condition there, no takesy backsies.
Yeah.
So he was able to get that one back.
Psych.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a weird one. The Buffalo Sabres acquired Wayne Simmons from the New Jersey Devils for a conditional 2021 fifth-round pick, which turns into a fourth-rounder if the Sabres make the playoffs and Simmons plays 10 games.
What a bold condition on there.
I know. I saw that and I was like, wait, what? Are they where I think they are? Or are they higher? Nope, they're exactly where you think.
I think this tells us all that we need to know about Jason Botterill, to be honest.
Yeah, I thought about this one after I saw it and had some time to think about it. It was like, is this just like a desperation move from a man trying to save his job? Like, at least I did something. Like, it just seems weird.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean,
Doesn't make any
are they
sense.
looking for like some cheap player to potentially sign in the offseason? Because I mean, his contract's done at the end of the year too. So
Yeah, they could have just got him for free because they're
yeah,
not
exactly.
making the playoffs.
Yeah,
And
so they just basically gave up a draft pick for someone they could have signed in 2 months who isn't actually going to help them do anything because they're not making the playoffs.
I don't understand this one. This is the one trade that was made today that I don't understand.
Well, I mean, okay, so we've seen how Montreal has been really good at asset management this last week here. Um, Now we have their counterpart.
Yes.
You got to,
Yes.
if you have like the good, you have to have the bad there as well to balance it all out. So Buffalo's just kind of filling that void, I guess.
Yeah, let's recap. So they traded away Scandella. They didn't get as much as they probably could have because the Montreal showed that he was worth more. They terminated the contract of Bogosian. He then signed with Tampa, and they randomly gave up a pick for Wayne Simmons for 16 games. What?
Yeah,
What are they
that's
doing?
about it.
Why?
This is not the 4D chess we were talking about earlier.
No,
This
this
is
is
like
like
1D.
1D.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is real
And
bad.
you know what? Like Buffalo is very clearly in like an Edmonton level rebuild right now, and they're just giving up draft picks. Like that's the one thing you need, and they're just like giving them up for nothing.
Yeah. Very optimistic condition. If we make playoffs, it'll turn into a fourth. I mean, maybe they're like anticipating a giant collapse by, like the Leafs.
Maybe Botterill knows something we don't. Who knows?
Maybe I don't understand. It's so weird. And then they got the Devils to retain 50% too. It's like, well, were you planning on making another move? It
Exactly.
just
Like why did you need that cap space? You weren't doing anything.
Bruins picked up another forward. They got Nick Ritchie from the Anaheim Ducks, and they shipped out Danton Heinen. I don't like this trade for Boston.
Neither do I.
I mean, Nick Ritchie fits into the typical go Bruins player, but
The Bruins, Danton Heinen is one of those players that was like severely underrated. He's kind of became like almost a whipping boy for a lot of things that like he was just like underperforming, stuff like that. In anything that I ever looked into about him, he was always kind of one of those guys that's their contributions just aren't like on the score sheet per se. Everything that he does is like really good, and he's a very valuable depth forward. He's just not the type of guy who's going to be like making headlines with how well he plays. And then to only get Nick Ritchie in return, like this is a guy who is like super dirty as a player. He's constantly elbowing and kneeing people, and he's like an underperforming higher draft pick who has never really been able to put anything together. And I kind of talked about this before the
so a
season
Ducks player.
started that like yeah, really. Stereotypical Anaheim Duck. But I talked about it with Richie before the season too, that like he was on his last legs in Anaheim. That if he couldn't figure it out, he's gone. They can't wait. They can't wait for him to put it together anymore. But I think the Ducks got a really good deal out of this one.
Yeah, I see this as a reactionary play on the part of the Bruins to try and add that gritty, like Patrick Maroon type player, because that's what beat them last year.
Yeah,
Like it's like maybe like the sense was like we're too soft going into playoffs, right?
yeah, they could. Maybe they want that physical presence. Maybe they value that high enough to exchange Heinen for it, because Heinen was more of just like a player, not like a physical player.
Yeah. kind of weird. Yeah, don't like it for the Bruins. But good
Nope.
job for the Ducks. All right, so another Detroit Red Wings and Edmonton Oilers trade here, Sean. The Oilers acquired Andreas Athanasiou and forward Ryan Kuffner, who's an NCAA guy, in exchange for Sam Gagner, a 2020 second round pick, and a 2021 second round pick. So, as our resident Oilers fan, thoughts?
I don't like this trade very much on first glance. I think that is an extremely high price to pay for a player who seems to be very one-dimensional and has had one good year. Athanasiou, aside from getting 30 goals last season, is like a 40-point guy, puts up maybe 15, 20 goals a year. And I personally value these second round draft picks really highly right now, especially this one with the first round or the 2020 draft being so deep that that pick might actually end up being still valuable at that point. But Athanasiou, he's one dimensional. He's like super fast, so he could very well play well with McDavid. But I've heard nothing particularly strong about him defensively, and he seems to be the type of forward who just kind of like waiting for the next scoring chance. So he's not really going to mesh well with a lot of the players on the team if he's doing that because, well, McDavid already does that a little bit. So that's just going to be a horrible line match or line combination. If Dave Tippett and his coaching staff can do the same with Athanasiou as they have with the rest of the team and kind of teach them a little bit more defensive structure and responsibility, that could end up being okay because you have two really super fast forwards who can just go and like completely blow past the opposition and score before anyone even knows what happened. But I think this is a really risky trade, and I'm not a huge fan of it. For me too, also living through the last little bit of Oilers stuff with the whole nepotism and old boys club, I'm not a huge fan of all of these Oilers Wings trades because it's just Holland bringing in his boys.
Two speedy guys on a wing together doesn't always work because of the reasons you mentioned. You can't have two guys cherry picking. I think that Athanasiou could be a capable winger for McDavid, but we'll have to see. The proof is in the pudding, right? We have to
Exactly.
see
I'm
what
going to give it some
happens.
time and see, of course.
I think that you can rate this trade on one other metric, and that is how many 8-point nights does Andreas Athanasiou have? 0. How many does
He's a
Sam
scrub. He has
Gagner
0
have?
8-point
1.
nights.
Trade 1 for the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah. I just like personally feel bad for Gagner because I actually really like him as a player and as a person. Like he seems to just really enjoy playing at Edmonton.
Yeah, he's
And
another
once
guy with a
again,
punch card.
basically, yeah, and once again, he just gets shipped out of Edmonton. And I would have really liked to see what he could do for the team in the playoffs.
Yeah, I guess, he should have hit the net last night.
Yeah.
He was on a 2-on-1 with, I think, Draisaitl. Draisaitl passed it across and he just whiffed it wide. And then McDavid, when he got his
That sounds
beautiful
right.
goal last night, was on a 2-on-1 with Gagner and just didn't pass to him. Just did it all himself. It's like, that's when we knew he was gone.
Let's be honest. The opposing goalie would just assume McDavid's going to pass it anyways, so that's a useful
Yeah.
play.
Yeah, just drive the net. Get the plus. Yeah, you mentioned Athanasiou, his defensive lack of a prowess, I guess. I think he's the league leader or legal loser in plus minus.
Yeah,
Like
he's getting the Green
minus
Jacket right
30
now.
or something. Yeah. I
45.
mean, I don't put faith in plus minus all the time, but I think it still tells you a story of
He's basically
what
minus
that
one per
player's
game.
like. Yeah.
Yeah, Detroit as a team is minus 100 and something. Athanasiou is minus 45. So it doesn't exactly say a whole lot because of how bad the team is, but you're still the worst of the worst. Like that is telling something.
Yeah, I mean that's like
That maybe,
Draisaitl's plus minus 2.
exactly, yeah, how many points does he have? Yeah, he still like was minus something or something. Like he was absurdly minus for a bit.
Yeah. So
So
it
that
tells you.
also like it's telling of the line too. I mean, the line he's playing on being nowhere near as good as the line they get matched up against.
Yeah.
As a function of how bad the team is.
Plus, like he's a scoring forward on a shitty team. Like, of course he's going to have a minus because his team can't stop goals. They could be actively trying to get scored on. Who knows?
Yeah. Tank commander.
Yes. So yeah, I think this is one of the trades that we're going to have to wait and see, because it seems like it's a good idea, but is it? Is it really? We'll have to see how he performs. So yeah, the Oilers weren't done though. They also acquired Tyler Ennis from the Ottawa Senators in exchange for a 2021 fifth-round pick. What do you think about this one?
I actually really like it. I think that's a great price to pay for a forward like Tyler Ennis. He's kind of like another random energetic depth forward type, but he's also a bit of an offensive punch from down there as well. He's got 33 points this season in 61 games with Ottawa. So the Oilers, their bottom six forwards have still been a little bit of a mishmash of random players as they try to find something that works. And I like the addition of Tyler Ennis. He's kind of a smaller, one of those gritty types, similar to Yamamoto, what he's shown in the last couple months here. So I'm quite happy with this one.
All right. Flames acquired Derek Forbort, defenseman from the LA Kings, for a 2021 fourth.
Yeah, and the condition on the pick is that it upgrades to a 2022 third-round pick if Calgary reaches the 2020 conference finals and if Forbort plays 50% of the games, or if Forbort re-signs with Calgary.
Seems all right.
For a team that's kind of had some injury issues on defense, this is probably just a helpful depth piece for them.
Pittsburgh Penguins acquired Connor Sherry and Evan Rodriguez from the Buffalo Sabres in exchange for Dominic Cahoon. So I think this one looks like a Crosby, I want Connor Sherry back. I'm tired of playing with Dominic Cahoon trade to me.
I would not be surprised. Yeah, I have to agree with you there.
I thought Cahoon was playing well with Crosby, but
it's probably a good one for Pittsburgh to get another winger that Crosby's familiar with.
I don't really have anything to say about that one.
like I mentioned earlier, like the Penguins have been absolutely decimated by injuries this year. So Evan Rodriguez is a bit of a depth forward type that he's probably going to be able to jump in and help out with the bottom six forwards, just kind of provide some stability and hopefully not get hurt 2 games into his tenure there.
Go full Bo Bennett mode. Carolina Hurricanes, they acquired Sami Vatanen at 50% salary retained from the New Jersey Devils for forward prospect Yanni Kuokkanen and Frederick Claesson, defenseman, and a conditional 2020 fourth-round pick.
And the condition on the 2020 fourth-round pick is if Vatanen plays in 5 regular season games, the pick upgrades to a 2020 third-round pick if Vatanen plays... The Devils receive the 2020 fourth-round pick if Vatanen plays in 5 regular season games. Then the pick upgrades to a 2020 third if Vatanen plays in 12 regular season games or 70% of the 2020 playoff game. So that's not even a guaranteed pick in there. That's kind of the condition is on receiving the pick too.
Yeah, I think the condition exists because Vatanen is hurt right now, and I think that they must have told teams what his status was. I think he's supposed to come back soon, but if that was a lie, it's
or
nice to have the condition or whatever in there. Yeah.
So Carolina's got major injury issues on defense right now with Dougie Hamilton and Brett Pesce both out. So any help they can get is going to be great. I think Vatanen's a pretty reliable defenseman. He's more of an offensive type, but he's not exactly a liability defensively.
Mm-hmm.
And I think his play style is going to fit in well with the fast-paced Carolina plays with.
Yeah, right-handed offensive defenseman, as we said earlier. That's in demand always. So
very.
I guess let's just mention it right now that the Hurricanes also acquired Brady Shea from the New York Rangers in exchange for a 2020 first-round pick. And I guess the Hurricanes have 2 picks, so the condition is that they can choose which one they give up.
Yeah, so the Rangers will receive the later of either Carolina's or Toronto's first rounder.
And Brady Shea actually has a few years left on his contract. So I actually really like this trade for the Hurricanes.
I do too. I wasn't aware even that Shea was being shopped.
Me neither.
That one was kind of way out of nowhere.
Yeah, he's signed until the end of the 2023-24 season at a pretty reasonable 5.2 cap hit.
Yeah, absolutely. For a guy who's probably going to end up playing second pairing minutes right now. As far as I'm aware, Shea is a reliable defenseman. That he's not exactly a Swiss cheese type guy. He's not and reasonable offensive production as well, putting up about 25 points a year.
Yeah, so giving up a mid to late first round pick, I think
Yeah,
that's a solid trade for the Hurricanes.
exactly. And that's a great way to look at it. Like, if you could get a player like Brady Shea with a late first rounder, you would probably be pretty happy, especially considering that he was a 28th overall draft pick. So,
Yeah, there you go. I think it's somebody who can step into their lineup right now and make a difference. Especially with
exactly.
those injuries you just mentioned, um, pretty substantial for them to have two out of their top four guys out. So makes sense. I think it's a great trade. I think this is one of the best trades of the day. I might be overvaluing Brady Shea a
Absolutely.
little bit,
Yeah.
but
And
I think it's
we're,
huge.
yeah, we're talking just about Carolina side, but the Rangers too, they're obviously still in a bit of a rebuild as well. So once again, they're a team who's going to need the draft picks. And with how deep, like I've said, how deep this draft is supposed to be, that late first round pick could be quite valuable actually.
The next one I want to mention is a bit of a messy one. This is the three-way trade of the day. So Vegas acquired Robin Lehner from the Chicago Blackhawks in exchange for Malcolm Subban, D prospect Slava Demin, who's from California, just as his name suggests, and a 2020 second round pick that was originally from Pittsburgh. And in this trade, Toronto retained salary on Robin Lehner, and they were rewarded with a fifth round pick for their trouble. So
I
kind of a weird one.
I don't understand what the point of or how Toronto is able to retain that cap. Like what the point of them coming into this trade was.
I don't know. It's weird. I guess the Knights also got a random forward from the Leafs in this guy named Martin Sirkals. Jirkals. Seems weird for
Yeah, they
them
got
to
his.
help out Vegas for a fifth round pick, but
Yeah, exactly too. Like as a fifth round pick, why? What exactly do you value in that?
I don't know. It's just Dubas things, I guess.
Yeah, he's got some analytics value on that pick. That it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, that fifth round pick has good Corsi, I guess. It's going to be a good one. Yeah, weird. I mean, I love this trade for the Knights.
Oh, absolutely. So, like I mentioned earlier on with that Martinez trade, like the Knights are great at identifying their needs. You talked about this a few episodes ago, back when Gallant got fired, that the Golden Knights have had a very strong need for a goalie, and they go and pick up one of the upstart goalies of the last couple of seasons, who had a really good year last year in New York. Kind of a bit of a rocky-ish tenure with Chicago after he signed there over the summer, but he's still a really good goalie.
Yeah, I think what's the best backup to have? Another starter.
Yeah,
So I think this is great. I mean, Subban wasn't great. I don't know. Haven't heard this Slava Demin guy, but um, I don't know. Good for the Hawks to get an active or an okay backup, I guess. A D prospect and a second round pick for a goalie that was likely not going to stay there past this season.
exactly. And I mean, we've talked about this type of asset management with a couple other trades as well, but Chicago signed Leonard in the offseason last year, and now they've gotten another goalie, a second round pick, and a prospect out of nothing.
Yeah, so they're able to get something for nothing.
Yeah.
All right, so the Tampa Bay Lightning continuing their acquisition of every player on the market. They got Barclay Goodrow and a 2020 third round pick that was originally Philadelphia's in exchange for a 2020 first round pick and forward Anthony Grieco to the San Jose Sharks.
So
This is kind of weird to me.
how so?
I didn't think Barclay Goodrow was worth a first round pick,
That
although
part
it's going to be a
is,
very
yeah.
late first round pick, but seems weird.
I'm less surprised because of how much other players have gone for, and looking at kind of the reputation that Barclay Goodrow has built up over the last couple of years.
Have you ever
that I
heard of?
think.
Oh, go ahead.
I think Gaudreau's been kind of the type of forward that Tampa Bay needs. It's kind of one of those more physical, gritty bottom six forwards that they were lacking last year, and they seem to be keen on acquiring a few of them. They did a couple over the summer, and Barclay Goodrow is another one that I think will probably help them out in terms of trying to actually play playoff hockey.
Yeah, I think it's a smart move for the Sharks to actually get a first in this draft.
That is a very good point. That's after San Jose's first round pick this year is in Ottawa's possession. They now actually can draft in the first round.
Yeah, kind of nice. Vegas acquired Nick Cousins from Montreal Canadiens in exchange for a 2021 fourth round pick. So another depth piece for them.
So what's this, basically a cheaper Aiken, something along those lines?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't
That seems to
think,
be. I
does
mean,
Cousins play wing and center or just wing?
his cap friendly page is listed as all the forward positions, so I'm just gonna
Oh,
assume he's one of those guys that can do
okay.
whatever.
Okay. Fair enough. Then yeah, other roster player, bottom six, Montreal. Hey, why not another fourth round pick?
Hey, why not? Yeah, we're gonna be seeing. I mean, the draft this year is in Montreal too, right? So they're probably gonna want as many picks as possible.
Yeah, that's a good point. This next trade is another one of my favorites of the day. Calgary Flames acquired Eric Gustafsson from the Chicago Blackhawks in exchange for a 2020 third round pick. I think this is a solid pickup
And
for the Flames.
yeah, and the condition on that third round pick is that Chicago will receive the earlier of Calgary or Edmonton's 2020 third round pick on the requirement that Edmonton's pick meets its conditions and becomes the property of Calgary. And I believe this is the one that was a part of the James Neal trade,
Ah, okay.
I want to say. The pick says the pick is still in Edmonton's possession and Calgary doesn't own it yet, so that pick needs to meet its conditions before it can be a part of this trade.
You can do that. You can trade conditional picks that conditions haven't been met yet.
Apparently,
As long as it's in another condition. Weird.
I'm
That
still
seems
yeah.
bizarre, but
Yeah, that is the pick, the third round pick that was in the Lucic Neal trade.
that's
So
wild.
I've never heard of that before, but it's a
No,
thing
yeah.
apparently. Yeah, so I'm not quite sure what Calgary's going for with this one because Gustafsson isn't much of a defenseman.
He's a
He's
power play
like,
guy.
yeah. So I mean, he can help out with that. I'm sure they're looking for someone who can provide a bit of an offense from the back end. They don't seem to have a whole lot of that. I think Gustafsson had the quietest 60-point season by a defenseman ever
Yes.
last year, and this year he's sitting at about 26 points in 59 games. So somewhat around a 35 to 40 point pace, I want to say,
Hmm.
which is respectable from the back end. So he can help out there. Like we said, they have some depth and injury issues, so they might be looking for that.
Yeah, I like this trade. I think, Chicago has had its problems with DeBrincat's having a down year. Um, Kubalik's in there having a great year, but I think their team has been losing a lot this season, even with Leonard and Crawford as a tandem. So it makes sense that he's having less points this season. I think he can definitely come in and add some two-way play on the blue line. So I think it's a good pick.
And another point for Chicago side is that Adam Boqvist, one of their top defensive prospects, is a very offensive guy is himself.
Mhm.
So they don't really need both of them. So Gustafsson became expendable as Boqvist kind of makes his way more into Chicago's lineup over the rest of the season here.
Yeah, makes sense. And I don't think there's any other trades that I have deemed important enough to go over, unless you.
I have one that I want to bring up.
Mhm.
So the New Jersey Devils acquired Zane McIntyre, goaltender, from the Vancouver
Uh,
Canucks in exchange for Louis Domingue. So
yeah.
two things I want to say about this one. How the fuck does Louis Domingue keep getting NHL jobs?
You
I
can't keep getting
I
away with this.
I know, like he's never been a very particularly good goalie anywhere he's gone, but he keeps getting chances in different teams, and this is like his fourth team now. He even had a chance in Tampa Bay as their backup and even starter during some injury troubles. Didn't put up very good numbers and left Tampa Bay and didn't do well in New Jersey. Now he's in Vancouver, which leads me to the second important reason for this is that Jacob Markstrom is actually out for, I think it was 3 to 4 weeks with a torn meniscus. So the Canucks were in the market for, apparently, I'm putting NHL in air quotes, for an NHL capable defense or goaltender to kind of cover the rest of the season until Markstrom's back.
Yeah, I think they will probably use him as a backup still because they can get Thatcher Demko probably to be their starter. But
yes,
I think the latest I heard on Markstrom is that they're going to reevaluate on Wednesday when he's back in Vancouver just to see the team doctors. I think he got evaluated by external medical staff.
Okay.
So they want to get him looked at by their own team, and then they'll have a press release on Wednesday about what's going on. He's been their MVP. We've covered that before. That would be a huge blow to them. But I saw 2 to 3 weeks. But who knows? Could be 4. That would suck. That would blow for the Canucks.
That would be massive for them, just being in such a tight race for the playoffs to lose their MVP.
Yeah. They wanted a goalie and they wanted a cheap one.
So that's the other thing, I guess.
Out.
Yeah, that's the other part. I mean, they couldn't afford much of a better one because the Canucks are like right up against the cap as well. Yeah. And Domingue's a cheap goalie, so there they go.
Yeah, and so that's all the trades. But speaking of goalies, we have to talk about a goalie situation that happened. It's emergency backup goalie.
Oh, we have to talk about this. This is too big a story not to throw in.
So, during the Carolina versus Toronto game, at about like 9 minutes left in the second period, Peter Mrazek got absolutely destroyed by Kyle Clifford. He went out of the game. That was the second goalie for Carolina to get knocked out of the game. James Reimer got hurt in the first. So it was an emergency backup. And a 42-year-old Zamboni driver for the Toronto Marlies entered the game and got the win.
That's hockey movie script right there. Just like local Zamboni driver gets the chance in the NHL.
Yeah. So he's a guy who's actually practiced with the Leafs. He played in like their when they played like in an outdoor rink, like scrimmage. He played in that game. So the Leafs got beat by a 42-year-old Zamboni driver who works for the team and was wearing a Maple Leafs helmet and pants and gear.
Yep.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I mean the Leafs, what was it? I think the score was 3-1 when David went in, and then the Leafs scored on the first 2 shots, and then into the third period, or into the end of the second into the third period, Carolina just absolutely shut down defensively. And David Ayres made a few actually impressive plays. I'm thinking one in particular where he actually left the crease and went and made a little play with the puck to shoot it behind the net and keep it out of Toronto's possession. But he shut the door. He got the win. He actually got a shot on goal too. He took a little bit of a slow dump out of the offensive zone. It just kind of crept in on Anderson.
Yeah, it banked off the boards. Yeah, so he only faced like 10 shots.
10 shots, yeah.
2. But like, come on, Leafs. All you had to do was get shots.
Exactly.
That's all you had to do.
I think. So I mean, Carolina, we've seen them at their best. We know they're an excellent team at retaining possession and control of the play, but it's not a good look on your team when you can't even get shots on net. You can't even get the puck. You can't even do anything with it. When you're a talented offensive team, the likes of Toronto.
I thought it was an embarrassing loss. It was just brutal. What a great night,
for social media, though.
Ayres. Yeah, pretty great.
And
not if you're a Leafs fan.
So David Ayres he used to play in junior, and if I read it correctly, he had to kind of put his hockey career on hold when he needed a kidney transplant years back. And after the game, the Carolina Hurricanes put a T-shirt with his name and number on it for sale. So what they said after is that part of the royalties go to David himself, and part of it go to like a kidney foundation or like kidney health or foundation. So
Yeah, pretty cool move.
pretty cool move by the Hurricanes there. They're doing a really good job of that type of stuff lately.
Yeah, they're gonna have him at their game on Tuesday, tomorrow, I think, and he's gonna be doing like the siren before the game. David Ayres said like when he got out there, some of the players were saying like, don't worry, if you let in 10, doesn't matter. like we're just happy you're here.
Yeah.
So it calmed him down, and he's able to just kind of settle in.
Yeah, well, that's a huge statement from someone to be like, just you're here, just like do what you can, you know. The pressure of going onto an NHL rink in front of 20,000 screaming fans,
Yeah, in
and
Toronto too.
to have someone on the ice say like, you're good, like just do your thing.
hmm
Whatever happens, happens. Like that's just a sigh of relief, I imagine.
That was Eric Holla, so clearly that wasn't appreciated by the team, and they shipped him out for his reckless behavior.
Yeah. That's what Moore's eye roll was directed at.
But yeah, I mean, pretty cool moment. We always love to see the emergency backup goalies. Scott Foster, David Ayres, absolute
Good
legends.
stuff.
Both won so far. So yeah, the Scott Foster played like part of the third. David Ayres played almost half of a game. So the
Yeah,
next emergency backup that plays has to play an entire game.
I don't want to see what happens in the pregame skate and warm up to whatever team this happens to.
Yeah, so a pretty eventful trade deadline. Lots of
Very, like
moves.
we said at the
So
beginning, lots of trades, a few surprises, a few weird ones, but I think before we finish off too, the for like the weeks leading up to it here, Chris Kreider, the New York Rangers winger, was like the number one candidate on the trade bait board, but just in like the last day, re-signing contract talks accelerated in New York, and Kreider staying in New York, he didn't get traded, so
yeah, they signed him for
that would have
7
been
years.
one of the biggest hauls for a single player this year, but he's staying in New York.
Yep. Barry stayed put. There's rumors he was going to move. Didn't go anywhere. So yeah, I mean, before we wrap it up here for the week, uh,
Yeah.
which team do you think did the best?
I really like Ottawa and Vegas. Um, Ottawa, I still don't like them just shipping out all the players constantly every single year, but they seem to be like rebuilding by force right now. And I'm hoping that it's like actually a corner has turned for them, and they'll actually start to treat the organization and its players properly as they start to bring this next generation of Senators up. They have so many draft picks that even if a lot of them are turn out to be nothing, that they should at least get something through this. And with Vegas, they're perennially in a playoff contention. They're perennially an active contender in any trade and free agent. And once again, they've done an excellent job identifying their needs. They've got the defenseman they needed to help solidify their D. They've got the goalie they need to back up Flurry and possibly even step in as a starter, depending how the rest of the season, the playoff goes. And they're well off.
Yeah, I think the Hurricanes did a pretty good job acquiring Vatanen, acquiring Trocheck, and getting Brady Shea at a crazy price. I think they did pretty well for themselves. And on the flip side, I think that the New Jersey Devils did a great job getting rid of basically everybody that wasn't nailed down, and getting some picks. Um, getting exactly what they need to move forward and to get out of this rebuild. And they got rid of Louis Domingue. So
It's
not
always a
bad.
good thing.
Yeah. Habs did well.
I also want to throw Buffalo in the did poorly spot just because it's Buffalo.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair. They did some stuff that didn't make sense. So that they're in a category of their own.
Yep.
I think every other team their moves, you can see what they're thinking with it, whether you want
And
to.
Buffalo was just like, nope, wild card.
If we make playoffs, we'll give you an even higher pick. Yeah. Okay.
You see, Buffalo is just putting a new definition to wild card, right?
Yeah.
Not actually making the playoffs. It's just about being that like chaos creator and just like, yeah, see what we can do for fun, shits and giggles.
Poor Jack Eichel. Poor man. Yeah. So, unless you have anything else to add, I think that pretty much brings us to a close here.
Yep, that wraps things up for this week here on Clappercast. If you enjoy what you're listening to, make sure to spread the word around with your family and friends. If you want to keep up to date with any of our latest content and hockey news throughout the week, you can follow us on Instagram at Clappercast Media or on Twitter at Clappercast. Thank you all for tuning in for this special trade deadline episode, and we will be back next week with more hockey talk.